The silence was what scared me most. Not the tantrums, not the tears at drop-off, but the complete and total silence whenever I asked my daughter about her day at daycare. Emma was 3.5 years old, and up until about 6 weeks ago, she couldn't stop talking. She narrated everything. She told me stories about her imaginary friends, about the clouds, about the ants on the sidewalk. She was a chatterbox, my sweet little girl, always asking questions, always sharing her thoughts. But when it came to daycare, she had nothing to say. At first, I thought it was normal. Maybe she was just tired after a long day. Maybe she needed time to decompress. I read somewhere that young children sometimes struggle to verbalize their experiences immediately after they happen. So I gave her space. I waited, but the silence continued. Week after week, the same thing. I would pick her up from Bright Beginnings Daycare, and she would climb into her car seat without a word. I would ask how her day was, and she would stare out the window. I would ask what she did, who she played with, what she ate for lunch, and I would get one-word answers or nothing at all. If your child has ever shut you out like this, you know how terrifying it feels. Drop a comment below and share what helped you break through. And if this is your first time here, please subscribe to help support this channel. Your support means everything. My husband David noticed it too. At dinner one evening, he tried his usual approach, asking Emma about her favorite part of the day. She pushed her chicken nuggets around her plate and said nothing. He looked at me across the table, and I could see the worry in his eyes. This wasn't normal. This wasn't our Emma. I started watching her more carefully during pickup. The other kids would run to their parents, waving artwork, shouting about the playground or snack time. Emma would walk slowly, her head down, clutching her little backpack. She never brought home artwork anymore, even though I could see colorful paintings hanging on the drying rack with other children's names on them. When I asked her teacher, Miss Jennifer, about it, she smiled brightly and said Emma was doing great, that she was a sweet, quiet girl who played nicely with others. But that description didn't match my daughter. Emma wasn't quiet. Emma was loud and silly and full of life. At home, she sang constantly. She made up songs about everything. She dressed up in princess costumes and put on shows for us. She built elaborate towers with her blocks and told us stories about the people who lived in them. So why was she a different child at daycare? Why was she quiet there? I tried different approaches. I tried asking specific questions instead of general ones. Did you paint today? Did you play outside? Did you read any books? Emma would nod or shake her head, but she wouldn't elaborate. I tried making it a game, asking her to show me with her toys what she did at daycare. She would pick up a doll, move it around for a few seconds, then put it down and walk away. I tried waiting until bedtime, thinking maybe she would open up in the quiet darkness of her room. Nothing. David suggested maybe we were overthinking it. Maybe daycare was just boring to her and she didn't have anything exciting to report. Maybe we should just let it go. But I couldn't let it go. Something in my gut told me this was more than just a phase or a personality quirk. Something was wrong and my daughter couldn't or wouldn't tell me what it was. I started doing research online, reading parenting forums and articles about young children and communication. I learned about selective mutism, about trauma responses, about anxiety in preschoolers. The more I read, the more terrified I became. Was my daughter being hurt? Was she being bullied? Was something happening at that daycare that I couldn't see? I decided to talk to Miss Jennifer again, but this time more directly. I scheduled a conference and went in with a list of concerns. I explained that Emma used to be very talkative and expressive, but that she had become completely silent about daycare. I asked if Miss Jennifer had noticed any changes in Emma's behavior, any incidents with other children, anything that might explain the shift. Miss Jennifer seemed genuinely surprised by my concerns. She assured me that Emma was doing well, that she participated in activities, that she ate her lunch, that she napped without any problems. She said Emma was perhaps a bit shy compared to some of the other children, but that she seemed happy and well-adjusted. When I pressed for more details, asking about specific interactions or moments in the day, Miss Jennifer became a little defensive. She had 15 children in her care, she reminded me gently. She couldn't give me a minute-by-minute account of Emma's day. I left that meeting feeling dismissed and frustrated. Maybe I was being an overprotective, paranoid mother. Maybe David was right, and I was making something out of nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That weekend, I decided to try a new strategy. Instead of asking Emma about daycare directly, I would just spend time with her and see if she opened up naturally. We went to the park, just the two of us. We played on the swings and went down the slide. We collected leaves and acorns. We got ice cream and sat on a bench watching the ducks in the pond. I didn't ask her a single question about daycare. I just let her be. And slowly, gradually, she started to relax. She started chattering again, telling me about the ducks, about the ice cream flavor, about the funny-shaped cloud in the sky. My Emma was coming back. I felt such relief, hearing her voice, hearing her laugh. Whatever was happening at daycare, at least I knew she was still in there, my bright, talkative little girl. On the drive home, emboldened by her good mood, I tried something different. Instead of asking about her day, I told her about mine. I told her about a meeting I had at work that was kind of boring, about a coworker who told a funny joke, about how I spilled coffee on my shirt and had to wear my sweater all day to cover the stain. I made it silly and dramatic, and Emma giggled. Then I said casually, "You know what? Sometimes I have days at work where I don't really want to talk about them. Sometimes things happen that make me feel weird or sad or confused, and I don't have the words for it yet. Do you ever feel like that?" Emma was quiet for a moment. Then in a very small voice she said, "Sometimes." My heart started pounding. I kept my voice light and easy. "Yeah? What does that feel like for you?" Another long pause. "I don't know. Like my tummy feels funny. Like a scared feeling or a sad feeling." "I don't know, Mommy. I didn't push." I just said, "Well, if you ever want to talk about things that give you the funny tummy feeling, I'm always here to listen. No matter what, okay?" Okay. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was the first time she had acknowledged that something at daycare was affecting her. I felt like I had finally found a tiny crack in the wall she had built around this part of her life. Over the next few days, I kept using this approach. I would share little stories from my own day, including moments that were uncomfortable or awkward or difficult. I normalized the idea that not everything in life is easy or fun, and that it's okay to talk about the hard stuff. And slowly, Emma started sharing tiny pieces of information. She told me that sometimes the classroom was too loud and it hurt her ears. She told me that she didn't like it when all the kids had to sit in a circle because there wasn't enough room and people bumped into her. She told me that one of the boys always took the toy she was playing with, and when she told Miss Jennifer said they had to share. These seemed like small things, normal preschool challenges. But for Emma, they were clearly overwhelming. And the more she shared, the more I realized that the problem wasn't one big traumatic event. It was the accumulation of small stresses that she didn't have the tools to process or communicate. But there was still something she wasn't telling me. I could feel it. There was a piece missing from this puzzle. Then one evening, about 2 months after the silence had started, Emma and I were reading books before bed. We were reading one of her favorites, a story about a little mouse who was afraid to go to school. In the story, the mouse is scared because she doesn't know anyone and doesn't know what to expect. But then she meets a kind teacher and makes a friend, and everything turns out okay. When we finished the book, Emma was quiet. I closed it and set it aside, about to turn off the light when she said, "Mommy, what if the teacher isn't kind?" I looked at her, startled. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "In the story, the teacher is kind." "But what if the teacher isn't kind? What does the mouse do then?" My blood ran cold. "Emma, is your teacher not kind to you?" She started playing with the edge of her blanket, not meeting my eyes. "Sometimes she's kind, but sometimes she's angry." "Angry about what? When kids are too loud? Or when they don't listen? Or when they make a mess?" "And what does she do when she's angry?" Emma's voice got even smaller. "She yells. Really loud. It's scary." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I kept my voice calm, even though my hands were shaking. "Does she yell at you?" "Sometimes." Last week I spilled my juice at snack time, and she yelled at me and said I was being careless. Then she made me sit by myself while everyone else played. Tears were streaming down my face, but I didn't want Emma to see how upset I was. I took a deep breath. Emma, why didn't you tell me this before? She finally looked at me, and her eyes were full of tears too. Because Miss Jennifer said that big girls don't tattle. She said if we tell our parents every little thing that happens, we're being babies. She said we need to be tough and handle our problems ourselves. I pulled Emma into my arms and held her while we both cried. My poor baby had been carrying this burden for weeks, thinking she needed to be tough, thinking she wasn't allowed to tell me what was happening. She was 3 years old. 3. And she had been taught that asking for help was being a baby. I stayed with her until she fell asleep that night, stroking her hair and whispering that she could always tell me anything. That there is no such thing as tattling when it comes to feeling scared or unsafe. That asking for help is brave, not babyish. That I was her mother and it was my job to protect her. But I couldn't do that if I didn't know what was happening. The next morning, I didn't take Emma to daycare. I called in sick to work, and David did too. We needed time to figure out what to do. I was furious, heartbroken, and scared. How had I not seen this sooner? How had I let my daughter suffer for 2 months because I didn't push hard enough, didn't trust my instincts enough? David wanted to march into that daycare immediately and confront Miss Jennifer. But I convinced him we needed to be strategic. We needed to document everything, talk to the director, and if necessary, report the daycare to the licensing board. We also needed to find a new daycare for Emma as quickly as possible. That morning, I sat down with Emma and asked her to tell me everything she could remember about times when Miss Jennifer had yelled or been mean. I wrote it all down, trying to keep my expression neutral, even as rage burned in my chest. Emma told me about being yelled at for talking during quiet time. About being isolated from the group for crying when she missed me. About watching Miss Jennifer grab another child's arm roughly when he wouldn't sit down for lunch. About the constant threats that, if they didn't behave, they wouldn't get to play outside or have snack. None of it rose to the level of physical abuse, but it was absolutely emotional abuse. It was a teacher who was overwhelmed, burnt out, and taking her frustrations out on 3- and 4-year-old children. It was a teacher who had no business being in a classroom. I called the daycare director and requested an immediate meeting. When we arrived, I had my list of incidents and dates. The director, Mrs. Walsh, listened with increasing concern. She assured me she would investigate immediately, that this was completely unacceptable, that she had no idea this was happening. She offered to move Emma to a different classroom with a different teacher, but I was done. I told Mrs. Walsh that we would be withdrawing Emma immediately, and that I would be filing a complaint with the state licensing board. I also told her that she needed to seriously evaluate her hiring and oversight practices, because if this was happening in one classroom, it might be happening in others. Mrs. Walsh tried to convince me to give them another chance, but I refused. Emma's trust had been broken, and my trust had been broken. We were done with bright beginnings. The next week was chaos. I had to scramble to find alternative childcare while we searched for a new daycare. My mother came to stay with us and watched Emma during the day. David and I both tried to work from home as much as possible. And through it all, we focused on Emma, reassuring her constantly, letting her know that what happened wasn't her fault, that she did the right thing by telling us, that we would find a safe place for her. I visited 7 different daycares over the next 2 weeks. I asked detailed questions about discipline policies, teacher training, and classroom management. I asked to observe classrooms unannounced. I talked to other parents. I checked licensing records and complaint histories. I was not going to make the same mistake twice. We finally found a place called Little Explorers that felt right. The director, Miss Patricia, was warm and professional. The teachers were calm and patient. The children seemed genuinely happy. They had a clear policy about positive discipline and communication with parents. They encouraged parents to drop in anytime. They had cameras in every classroom that parents could access through an app. Emma's first day at Little Explorers was terrifying for both of us. I almost couldn't leave her. But her new teacher, Miss Amy, was wonderful. She knelt down to Emma's level, spoke softly, and asked her what she liked to play with. When I picked Emma up that afternoon, I held my breath, afraid of the silence, afraid of the shutdown. But Emma came running to me with a huge smile on her face. "Mommy, I painted a butterfly, and we sang songs. And Miss Amy said I did a really good job cleaning up my toys." I burst into tears right there in the hallway. Emma looked confused. "Why are you crying, Mommy?" "Because I'm so happy, baby. I'm just so happy." Over the next few weeks, Emma transformed. She started talking again, really talking. She told me about her new friends, about the stories Miss Amy read, about the games they played outside. She brought home artwork every single day. She sang the songs she learned. She asked if we could have playdates with her new friends. She was healing, and so was I. About a month after we left Bright Beginnings, I got a call from Mrs. Walsh. She informed me that they had let Miss Jennifer go, and that 2 other parents had come forward with similar complaints after I filed my report with the licensing board. She thanked me for bringing the situation to their attention and apologized again for what Emma had experienced. I appreciated the call, but it didn't change what had happened. It didn't give me back those 2 months of watching my daughter suffer in silence. It didn't erase the lesson Emma had learned about not being able to trust adults or ask for help. But we were moving forward. Emma was thriving at her new daycare. And I had learned some crucial lessons about trusting my instincts, about persistence, and about creating safe spaces for my child to communicate. I also learned that silence isn't always golden. Sometimes silence is a red flag, a warning sign that something is very wrong. And when a child who used to talk suddenly stops talking about a major part of their life, that's not something to ignore or explain away. That's something to investigate with every resource you have. One evening, several months after everything had happened, Emma and I were sitting together on the couch. Out of nowhere, she said, "Mommy, thank you for believing me." I pulled her close. "Of course I believed you, sweetheart. I will always believe you. Miss Jennifer said nobody would believe us if we told. She said parents always believe teachers, not kids." My heart broke all over again. "That's not true, Emma. I will always believe you. Always. If something doesn't feel right, if someone is being mean to you, if anything happens that scares you or makes you sad, you tell me. And I will believe you, and I will help you. That's my job. That's what mommies do." She nodded against my chest. "I know that now. Looking back, I can see all the signs I missed or explained away. The silence, yes, but also the changes in her behavior at home. She had become clingier, more anxious about separation. She had started having occasional accidents again after being fully potty trained for months. She had nightmares sometimes that she couldn't or wouldn't explain. Her appetite had decreased. She seemed more withdrawn during playtime with her friends. All of these were red flags, and I had attributed them to normal developmental phases or temporary adjustments to daycare. I had wanted so badly to believe that everything was fine, that I was doing the right thing by working and sending her to daycare, that I had ignored the mounting evidence that everything was not fine. The guilt ate at me for a long time. I talked to a therapist about it, about the mother's guilt of not protecting my child, of not seeing what was happening sooner. My therapist reminded me that I did see it eventually. I did trust my instincts. I did take action. And most importantly, I taught Emma that her voice matters, that she can come to me with anything, and that I will fight for her. That's the silver lining in this whole terrible experience. Emma learned that she has power, that her feelings are valid, and that asking for help is brave. And I learned to trust my gut, to be a fierce advocate for my child, and to never, ever accept silence as an answer when it comes to her well-being. Emma is 5 now, thriving in kindergarten. She's confident and outgoing, and full of joy. She tells me everything, sometimes more than I need to know. She's not afraid to speak up when something bothers her. She's developed into exactly the strong, expressive person I always hoped she would be. But I still think about those weeks and months of silence. I think about the other children who might not have parents who push, who investigate, who believe them. I think about the Miss Jennifers of the world who are in classrooms right now, overwhelming and scared and taking it out on the smallest, most vulnerable people in their care. That's why I'm sharing this story. Because if even one parent reads this and recognizes the signs in their own child, if even one parent decides to dig deeper instead of accepting easy explanations, if even one child is saved from experiencing what Emma experienced, then opening up about this painful chapter of our lives will have been worth it. Your child's silence is trying to tell you something. Listen to it, investigate it, don't accept it. Young children should be chatty and expressive and eager to share their experiences. When they're not, when they shut down about a specific part of their life, that's a warning sign. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. You know your child better than anyone else in the world. You know what's normal for them and what isn't. Don't let anyone, not teachers or directors or even your own doubts, convince you to ignore that parental intuition. Ask questions, lots of them. Be specific. Don't just ask how their day was. Ask what they ate for lunch. Ask who they played with. Ask what made them laugh. Ask what was hard. Ask what they learned. Create opportunities for them to share details and pay attention to where the details stop flowing. Create safe spaces for communication. Don't interrogate. Don't pressure. Just be present and available and patient. Sometimes children need to share on their own timeline, in their own way. But they need to know that you're ready to listen whenever they're ready to talk. And most importantly, teach your children that they can always tell you anything. That there's no such thing as tattling when it comes to their safety and well-being. That asking for help is strong, not weak. That their voice matters and their feelings are valid. I failed Emma for a while by not pushing hard enough, by not trusting my instincts strongly enough. But I didn't fail her in the end. In the end, I listened. I believed her. I acted. And I taught her that she deserves to be heard and protected and valued. That's what our children need from us. Not perfection. Just presence, persistence, and unconditional love. Just the willingness to fight for them. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's hard. Even when everyone is telling you that you're overreacting. You're not overreacting, you're being a parent. And that sometimes means being the only voice that refuses to accept silence as an answer. If this story resonated with you, please share it with another parent who might need to hear it. Tag a mom or dad who is struggling with communication with their child, who is worried about daycare, who needs the reminder to trust their instincts. Let's support each other in this journey of protecting and nurturing our precious children. And if you found value in this story, please consider subscribing to this channel. These stories matter. These experiences matter. And sharing them helps all of us feel less alone in the challenges of parenting. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring enough about your children to seek out resources and support. That's what makes you a great parent. Not having all the answers, but being willing to keep searching for them. Listen to the silence. It has so much to say.